Another thing I'd like to add here, I know a lot of people down here have it in for the Greys, they've also got it in for the Reptilians, but I actually know a reptilian person who's working down here now who was deeply into animal rescue. She started off in the police force and was involved in, I think it was Hurricane Katrina, one of those huge hurricanes that hit down south in the United States. And she was horrified, shocked to see what animals went through after this hurricane. And she shifted over to animal rescue. So she's doing that. Last time I heard about her, she was still involved in animal rescue. So she specializes in that area.
Yeah, that's definitely a great area to help out, natural disasters. And then there's also, the other things like taking away a lot of habitat for, wildlife to kind of sustain themselves. So that's really critical. But yeah, it's all good things when people are kind of dedicating some of their time to, helping those other areas out like that. So
yes,
thanks.
that's right. Yes, because people forget that animals and plants, they all have consciousness. This is the thing that's not acknowledged down here,
Oh, absolutely. Like animals, as far as I'm concerned, have souls, and just like humans, and we all have an important place. We're all here for a reason, and we're all connected. And and I mean, even with the deforestation, and when like I've had experiences with nature spirits, with elementals, and we share, if they come in, they're transdimensional, but if they come here in physical form, we are sharing this planet with them as well. Like we are literally all connected. So it's taking into consideration those aspects too when you're destroying the planet, and to some of those self-serving kind of bodies out there that we've talked about. but but you know what, I think there is a shift, and I have a lot of colleagues and friends that are also kind of in the environmental protection side of things. So so I think it's a really important piece to the whole kind of conversation as well.
That's for sure, Lisa. I totally agree. Good on you for talking about it.
Great. Thanks a lot, Judy.
Yeah, Lisa, you're an environmental scientist. I didn't know that, because you've been on with our talks many times before. Really appreciate you coming. And you're in Manitoba, right?
Yeah, I'm close to Winnipeg, Manitoba. Southern Manitoba, and and I actually lived up in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories for a number of years, and did a lot of environmental protection work up there as well. So
Very good. Well, you got to get a camera for future meetups. We got to see you. It'd be good. So stick around. I'm glad you're in the meetup.
Great. Yeah. Thanks so much, Brian.
Yeah. And Judy, want to mention one more thing about disclosure. Susie Hansen, like she was invited to this meeting, so that she couldn't come because I want to get her view on it. But like Jeff Selver, he's talked about that in his videos, and I've sat through about 30 hours of his video. He just did one today, actually, and he said disclosure will change everything, because it's these beings are interdimensional. The nature of reality is interdimensional. So when we develop, telepathy calls it quantum dimensional consciousness. He says quantum means there's no space, no time, or all space. And all time. So this will change everything. So it's not like we already know. I would say no, there's a lot more to disclosure. It's not like we know. We're a very, like Susie Hansen says, we're a very small community in the world, the UFO community, but there's millions of people don't even think about space. So I think it's a gradual process. So I just want to get Judy's comment on that.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a question exactly about that, space and time. So basically, we know, well, inside of us, we know there is no space, there is no time. However, you notice that I am in Cambodia and you are in the US, and that is space. And in that space, we also have a time difference. I am in the morning, you are in the evening. So explain that to me, please, because I know inside that there's no time, no space, but I cannot go and touch you and give you a hug. So explain that to me, please.
You know what it is? There's different levels of reality. That's what it is. I always remember being given again by one of the great teachers a way of thinking of this. He said, think of a person traveling along a very meandering river in a boat. They know where they are now. They sort of have an idea where they're going and they can remember where they've been. But if you have someone hovering above them in a helicopter, the person in the helicopter can look down on the boat and they can see where the person's been. They can see where they are now and they can see further ahead because they're up higher. And that's exactly what it is. Because we're on a lower level of reality, our vision is very limited. We know what's happening in the present, but we can't view the past. We can remember it, but we can't view it. And we can suppose our future, but we can't see it. But those higher up can see because they're on a higher frequency level. Again, it's all to do with energy. They're on a higher frequency of energy. So they have a much wider perspective and view than we do down here with our limited conscious mind.
Yeah, that's great for time. But now what about space? Because
same thing. They can see where we are. We can remember where we've been, but we sort of know what's ahead, but we don't. But they can see the space ahead of us. They can see the space behind us, and they can see the space where we are. So in that sense, when you think about it, time and space are sort of so, intrinsically linked.
Yeah, but still the distance is there. I mean, we are talking about there is no separation, okay? So true, there is no separation. We are all together. And as I said, energetically, I can touch that glass with my finger. I can't physically because obviously I'm not in the right density, but I should be able to do it. So I am aware of that. I know that, except that for the moment, I still don't touch it. You see what I mean? And so I'm still confronted with the fact that I am in this form and I have to assume it. And I have to assume the duality of knowing that I'm capable of something that I can't do, which is absolutely frustrating. I mean, honestly, you know, inside of you, you know that you're supposed to do something and be able to do something. Basically, you can't. And so this is so frustrating. I mean, how can you higher your frequencies with this kind of frustration on your back? I mean, this is really frustrating. I mean, I'm there and I say, okay, no, but I mean, I know I can do it. I'm supposed to be able to do it. I know I can, but I can't. So this is just frustrating. And then I can tell you, sometimes I'm crying, it's just terrible. And so I think, gosh, how can I higher my frequency if I'm crying for this kind of stuff or others or emotional stuff the same way? So it's just frustrating, isn't it?
Okay, it's not actually what's happening, it's what you're consciously aware of is happening. That's the key that we're looking at here. All these things are happening at once, but because we're working through a limited 10% human consciousness, we can't perceive these things are happening at once. And so we get stuck in a certain time, in a certain space that we can't see out of. But it's the limits of our consciousness.
Yeah, but then how to get out of that? That's the point.
Well, actually, that's what we're evolving towards, but it's a slow process.
Okay. How long is the process? No, because I'm 61, I don't have that much. No, but I mean, I'm 61. I don't have so many years to wait, I would like to see the end of the process now, honestly.
Well, you might in your next life.
Oh,
you might in your next life when you reincarnate.
I hope not here, for sure. Please, not on this planet again. No way, no way. Okay, thank you anyhow.
Yeah, Judy, I like that analogy of being on a helicopter looking at a boat. I often think about it as, we're in the third dimension. Sometimes I've done channeling, have a glimpse of a higher dimension, then usually I'm back down here. So I just accept, and we're in the third dimension. We're aware of higher dimensions. And we know that, from reports and even people like the Buddha, these higher levels. So, but I don't have the ability to perceive it, but I do accept that there's higher dimensions.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
I love these analogies that they use. I love these analogies that the grey teachers use. It really helps you to understand.
Yeah, great teacher gave you that analogy, right?
Yeah.
That's great. It's so good having you on. I mean, we want you back. I mean, these experiencers, this is the whole direction we want to go. I want to read a quote from your book, The Zeta Message. We didn't do all of this. The first time you met, I have some quotes I want you to comment on. On page 99, you talk about dancing. You said, he told us that he recalled being a dancer in a past human life in Spain, and added that he still likes to dance and was the one who helped me with my flamingo dancing. The old Zeta teacher, and this was, I guess, your friend, what was his name?
Oris, that's Oris.
Yeah, Oris, yeah. He said the old Zeta teacher in Whitley Strieber's The Secret School also taught dance as an important part of the curriculum. And when students graduated, they were referred to as dancers. By promoting flexibility of the body, dancing also helps to keep the mind flexible. This is a most important part of human evolution, mind expansion that the Zetas are trying to impart. That is why I teach Tai Chi. So it gives me a real sense of the value of dancing, because I know when I dance, I sometimes get really creative ideas, so you want to comment more on that?
Oh, yes. I mean, dancing opens us up to a whole new world. And this is why, because I've been a professional dancer, I was guided down the Tai Chi path to get into meditation, because once you start working with movement forms like Tai Chi, which is known as moving meditation, it's not only physical, it's spiritual as well, opening the mind and raising the vibrational frequency. I know, like, I teach Tai Chi for an hour every Friday morning at a class, and everyone's just on a high when we finish the class, sort of a little bit out of ourselves and on a complete high. And so many of them come and say, oh, it's just changed my life so much since I've taken up Tai Chi. And we get doctors sending people to the class. It's a senior citizen centre, and doctors send people to the class to learn Tai Chi. And that's for the reason of balance of body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah, I took the, I think it's the Master Yang method back in 1990, the 108 method. I learned that here in Vancouver. I did it. And it's some Qigong at that time. I just did a little bit now, but you make me want to get back into it,
Yeah. There's a wonderful site I actually teach. I learned a couple of shibashi techniques, which is a type of Qigong, from a site called taichi18.com.
Okay, so you'd recommend that then? People can look that up.
Yeah. Yes, I know the number 1 and number 2, and I'm going to try and get number 3 over the holidays when I've got a bit more time.
Good, because I know in the Buddhist teachings, he never really taught any type of physical exercise. Like over the centuries, we've developed walking meditation Buddhism, but the Buddha himself, he didn't teach that. Although as Buddhism went to places like China, they kind of combined with things like Tai Chi and Qigong. It's just sort of added on. So I have a lot of respect for that,
Yeah. Because a lot of people do have trouble getting into meditation, just sitting there. Whereas if you're doing something, if you're moving your body, and the Tai Chi form that I teach is a very long form. It takes about 20 minutes and there's 145 moves in it. So you've really got to concentrate on what you're doing. You can't be thinking about what I'm going to buy at the shops when I've finished or anything. You've got to concentrate.
Yeah, I know breath meditation by itself, it is difficult. Sometimes people need a grosser technique or something to connect them more with the body.
Yeah. And even Tai Chi is difficult. People don't realize how hard it is.
Movements like this, I remember, like that, and
and
the legs, the coordination, a lot of concentration.
Yeah.
And on page 101 of your book, I'll read this paragraph. You said, there's a similarity between the Zeta Greys and the Devas of the ancient Indian writings known as the Vedas. And the Buddha, of course, also referred to the Devas in the suttas. So Deva is a Sanskrit word meaning shining one. Their discs are even spoken of in the Rig Veda, where they're referred to as Vimanas. As far as I understand, all the natural healing methods of Eastern tradition, which tap into life force energy, come originally from India. And I believe they were first shown to humankind by the Devas. So it may have been the Zetas who brought them here to planet Earth millennia ago. This is why we take note when they give us advice on Reiki. So that's a powerful historical concept that the Greys could have come on flying saucers thousands of years ago and introduced these teachings like that. The Rig Veda actually refers to the craft, the Vimanas. That's really astonishing.
Yeah. Yes, I can feel a very close link between the Greys and the Devas, the spirit, the nature spirit kingdom. I had an interesting experience I talk about in the books where in 1995 I visited the UK and went to visit the Rollright Stones, which is a very, very sacred site over there and very famous for the presence of the nature spirit, fairies, little people. And in fact, part of the circle is the circle of stones, or there's 3 circles. There's 2 circles of stones and another separate stone called the King Stone. And the King Stone is set up on what's a very, very famous fairy knoll. And I actually got to stand in the middle of the main circle, the King's Men, I think it's called, and feel the energy when I was over there. And 3 weeks later, when I got back to Australia, I was feeling very strange sort of on an energy level. And at first I thought it might have been a bit of jet lag, but it went on. And I was feeling very deep states when I was doing meditation and Tai Chi. And 3 weeks after I came back, I experienced an amazing thing one night when I was taken out of my body by the Greys and taken back to the circle, laid down in the centre where I'd stood when I'd been over there. And a group of small Greys were around me and they were holding me down. And one of them had a needle about this long with a huge, absolutely gorgeous, faceted blue crystal on the end of it. And they stuck it into my 3rd eye chakra. It hurt like anything and I was struggling. Ow, ow, it's hurting, pull it out, pull it out. Lucky they were holding me down. And so finally they did pull it out. And the next morning I woke up and I had a red mark right where the needle had gone in.
Wow.
And what I came to realise after, that was a download of information from up there to prepare me to start writing the books. They said that the crystal contained the information. It was like an acupuncture technique to put it into my pineal gland, and that I was to start writing books from their perspective on the reason for the contact happening and everything. So that was a very interesting experience. And the blue crystal represents the grey, the tall grey that I work with, Maris. His colour is blue, which is to do with the throat chakra, because that's about creative communication.
Wow. Yeah, that relationship between the Greys and the Devas, I have a very deep interest in that because I've been a Buddhist since 1991. I lived in Thailand for 4 years, and 1994 I was initiated into these channeling to Deva practices, and I've been focusing on in Theravada Buddhist cosmology, Saka is our favorite Deva, a very popular Deva. In the 2nd heaven of the central sphere, the Buddha called the heaven of the 33 or Tawatimsa Deva. So I've been doing this practice for many years. I've taught it to thousands of people. It's in my book, Freeing the Buddha. It's actually being re-released now, my publisher in India, Multilateral Benares Publishers. So I've always wondered, what's the relationship between these ETs and Devas? Is this 2 different things? And actually 2 weeks from today, we have a guest on the meetup, Ajahn Punadamo. He's one of our senior monks in Northern Ontario here in Canada. And I've known him, and he's did a video on UFOs and aliens talking about this, talking about the Greys and Devas. And it's very rare for, a conservative Buddhist senior monk to be talking about these things. So I've always been trying to get Buddhists to, talk about the ET thing and the Deva connection. So it's really good that you discuss this, because I think that just in terms of my faith as a Buddhist, I think this is the whole future of Buddhism, like the way the world is getting, our consciousness is being raised in a sense. And I think it's very harmonious in Buddhist thinking.
There was a very early race of Greys that had their beginnings here on Earth, and they're known as the Ant People. And they worked alongside the nature spirit to sort of set up the actual environment of the planet when it was, this is going back billions of years, when it was actually being established. And they set up ecosystems for the animal life that was being introduced here. So some of the Devas are actually Greys, but I'm sure that there are others as well. I mean, they're not all, but some are. And these beings were actually known by the Hopi Indians and another Native American group, and they're known as the gardeners of the earth. And they used to be known to come out at night and do healing on the plants and things. So they're very, very closely connected in with the nature spirit kingdom.
That's very fascinating. Maybe talk more about that. So when they call them the ant people, like, does it look kind of like a gray, or say an insectoid like a mantis? Like, why would they call them ant people? A mantis sort of look?
Yeah, because they had their beginnings as ants or insectoids, ants and mantises, insectoids, whereas the modern day humans had their beginnings as primates. So this is why I use the term grey. When I say grey, it covers zetas, it covers mantids, it covers all the insectoid races throughout the whole universe, just to differentiate between grey humans and humans of today, the primate humans.
Yeah, and it's the mantids that bring, life from planet to planet, right? They're like the architects that bring it around. And wow, that's an amazing history. Even I did a video a few months ago with Ajahn Punadamo. We meet every 3 weeks. And he was saying that there was he called it the Cambrian explosion about 600 million years ago, how anthropologists, or archaeologists can't explain how did all this life blossom about 600 million. They can't explain how so much happened all at once. And I said, well, it was probably the mantids bringing life to Earth. You want to comment on that? Because I had never heard of the Cambrian explosion. Do you want to comment on that?
No, well, I must admit I haven't either, because I've never really studied history like that, but that would make a huge amount of sense, that they brought life here. And I think it was actually the mantids who engineered or created the ant people, who have now evolved into one of the grey groups. So yes, the mantids are very much linked into the greys. They're like elders to the greys.
Yeah, that really makes sense. This is a good connecting of dots, like Buddhism, anthropology, archaeology, ufology. This is what intelligence really is connecting dots from different fields,
Yeah.
So what did any idea, what did the ant people actually look like? Any idea?
Well, they originally, like humans, originally looked like primates. I mean, humans are very closely related to chimpanzees. There's only about 2 genomes difference or something. I can't remember. I've read up on it. I can't remember, but they're very, very closely related. And so the ant people were very closely connected to ants, and then they evolved a more human form, but they still retained the large eyes. I think they had antennas for a while, and they were gradually dropped. They evolved out of that, and they evolved into a more human form, just as humans have evolved into a more human form from their primate beginnings.
That's fascinating. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
And Lisa's got a comment here in the chat. Did you want to mention that, Lisa? Do you want to talk?
Sure. Yeah. No, it's really interesting discussion here. I think I've read through a few sources that the Mer people were here initially before the ant people. It was the Mer people, the ant people, and then and etc. So it'd be interesting to know, Judy, like what the Mer people did when they were here, and are they still around on Earth?
Oh yes, look, they would be in a different dimension, and this is why there's been reports over hundreds of years of sailors seeing them. They would be here in a different dimension, and they would have been part of the developing of the ecosystem of the planet, because when you think about it, life originated on Earth in the oceans, and then gradually as land emerged, it started to emerge out of the oceans. So the Mer people would have been involved in assisting with the ecosystem and the changeover from sea life to land life. So I wouldn't be surprised if the ant people sort of stepped in then a little bit more, because they were more land dwellers than sea dwellers. So they probably took over for the Mer people a little bit to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's really interesting.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
So any more questions? We've only been at this for 3 hours. We've had some Zooms go for 5 hours. Oh, Manek, go ahead. Is that how you pronounce it, Manek?
Yeah. No. My surname is Anik, but in Cambodia, Anik is they can't start with A. No,
I have studied that one. I think it's the deepest freshwater lake in the world in Russia, and they found some aliens there, and then they made a mistake, the Russians, of trying to capture them. So then the aliens just burst them right out of the water, but they got the bands, and many of them died because they're pushed right out of the water. That's a case. I know Richard Dolan and others, like Timothy Good actually wrote about that as well. So it's quite a special case.
That sounds a little bit like that movie Cocoon, and Cocoon 1 and Cocoon 2. That sort of reminds me of that a little bit.
But on the other hand, I was listening to Brian talking about the fact that, I didn't know that actually, that the mantis actually was seeding the planet.
Right.
And so that made me react, because actually there is a quite a nice new movie, interesting movie, which is called Ender's Game. And in Ender's Game, actually, the mantis want to destroy planet Earth. And so the humans destroy the planet of the mantis. And at the end of the movie, the young boy actually tries to save the whole species suitable for her.
Look where the
This is-
mantis
she
are placed
sacrifices-
though. Like what's the respect level given to the mantis? Like in reality, I think at the top, there's like a universal governing body, and then the mantids are sort of, you know, carrying. So the mantids are very,
Naturally.
very high in this hierarchy, where the movies would tend to invert that. So we have to
That's
consider
true,
that
that's
the
true.
reptarians probably run Hollywood, or the reptarians run media and movies, like movies and television is tremendous influence. So any other questions? There's still 11 of us here on the Zoom. We've been at it for 3 hours. You know?
Actually, on that note, I better get going because it's 12 noon.
I think 3 hours is a lot to ask you this. I really appreciate it, Judy. It's been great having you and Sherry on. I'd love to do it again, either with both of you or individually or more. So
Yes.
everyone
it's been
should open their
lovely.
mics, and we should give a thank you and a little applause for Judy here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Oh,
Judy.
Absolutely.
Yay. Thanks so much.
Please come back.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a really great meeting, Judy, for
It
you,
has.
and
It's
Sherry and
been
everyone.
lovely.
Thank everyone. Really good questions. Good.
Yeah,
input.
really good questions. Yes, right.
Very good. So we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye now.
Bye. Thank you.